The forbidden drink. Jack stumbled through the thick jungle, his body weak and shaking. His ship had crashed 3 days ago, and he had no food, no water. The sun on this alien planet was harsh, beating down on him like fire. His throat was dry, his stomach twisted in hunger. If he didn't find something soon, he would die here, alone. Then he saw her. She stood by a glowing blue river, her skin a soft shade of violet, her eyes large and bright. Her long silver hair moved gently in the wind. She wasn't human, but she wasn't frightening either. She was beautiful, like something out of a dream. Jack tried to speak, but his voice came out as a weak whisper. "Help, please." The alien girl tilted her head, watching him carefully. Then, without a word, she stepped closer, holding out a small crystal-like bottle. Inside was a thick, golden liquid. Jack took a step forward, his knees nearly giving out. "What is this?" The girl's voice was soft, almost musical. "You are weak. This will help you." Jack hesitated. He had no idea what was in that bottle, but his body was screaming for anything to keep him alive. His hand shook as he grabbed it and brought it to his lips. The first sip was warm and smooth, sliding down his throat like silk. Then came the rush. A wave of energy exploded through his veins. His muscles tingled, his vision sharpened. He gasped. What is this stuff?" The girl's expression changed, her glowing eyes darkening. "Only a little," she said. "Too much is dangerous." But Jack was already drinking more. The sweet, rich taste filled his mouth, his body buzzing with strength. The weakness faded, replaced by something powerful. He could feel his muscles tightening, his heartbeat pounding like a drum. For the first time in days, he felt alive. But then, something changed. Jack's breath hitched. His skin tingled, not in a good way. It felt like something was moving under his flesh. His heartbeat wasn't normal anymore. It was too strong, too fast. He clutched his chest, his vision blurring. "What's happening to me?" His voice was hoarse, strained. The girl's expression was full of regret. "You drank too much." Jack stumbled back, but his body wasn't his anymore. His arms were bulging, his muscles expanding as if something inside was growing, changing. His fingertips tingled, his skin shifting in color. Panic hit him like a storm. "Fix it," he gasped. "Make it stop." The girl stepped forward, her hand pressing against his chest. A faint glow spread from her fingers, but it did nothing. She shook her head. "It's too late." Jack's breathing was ragged. His body felt too strong, too heavy, as if he had been reborn into something else. His veins glowed faintly beneath his skin. His senses were on fire. He could hear the heartbeat of the girl standing in front of him. He could smell the water from the river, the flowers in the air. This wasn't normal. He wasn't normal anymore. Fear gripped his chest. What did I just become? The girl's voice was almost a whisper. "Something my people fear." A deep roar echoed in the distance. Jack's new senses picked it up instantly. Something was coming. Something big. The girl grabbed his arm. "Run." Jack barely had time to process what was happening before the trees shook violently. Something huge crashed through the jungle. A beast, its eyes glowing red, its claws like razor-sharp swords. It had the scent of the golden liquid Jack had just consumed. And it was coming for him. Jack clenched his fists. His body was stronger than ever. He could feel the power inside him, screaming to be used. But was it enough to fight whatever was coming? He didn't know. But he was about to find out. The unstoppable transformation. Jack's heartbeat thundered in his chest, his new senses screaming with overwhelming intensity. The alien girl, Zayla, clutched his arm, her wide silver eyes filled with fear. "Run," she whispered urgently. But Jack couldn't move. Not out of fear, but because his body felt different. Stronger. Heavier. His fingers curled into fists, and he felt raw power surge through his veins. He could sense everything. The slight shift in the air, the distant vibrations of the approaching beast, the way Zayla's breath trembled in panic. The trees shook violently. The creature was close. Then, boom! A massive figure crashed through the jungle, sending leaves and branches flying. The beast stood at least 10 feet tall, its body covered in thick, stone-like scales, its glowing red eyes locked onto Jack, nostrils flaring as it sniffed the air. Jack could smell its hunger. It wanted him. Zayla pulled on his arm. "Jack, please, we have to go." But Jack's instincts were screaming something different. Fight. Something inside him burned. His muscles felt ready, his body coiled like a predator about to pounce. The transformation wasn't done yet, but whatever he had become, it was built for battle. The beast roared and charged. Jack didn't think. He moved, faster than he had ever moved before. He dodged to the side, his body a blur. The beast's claws slashed through the air, where he had been standing just a second ago. This isn't normal. Jack barely had time to process that thought before the beast turned and lunged again. This time, Jack didn't dodge. He attacked. His instincts took over, and he swung his fist forward. He wasn't expecting much, maybe just enough force to slow the beast down. But the moment his fist connected with the creature's armored face, crack! The force sent shockwaves through the air. The beast screeched, its massive body slamming backward into a tree, cracking it in half. Jack staggered, staring at his own hand in shock. "What the hell?" he whispered. Zayla's mouth fell open. That shouldn't be possible. Jack wasn't listening. His blood was on fire, his skin tingled, his heart raced, and the golden glow in his veins pulsed brighter. The beast wasn't dead. It got back up, its red eyes blazing with fury. But this time, it hesitated. It was afraid. Jack felt it, a strange, alien sense that wasn't there before. He could read the creature's emotions, feel its fear. It wasn't hunting him anymore. It was deciding whether to run. But before it could choose, Zayla grabbed his arm again. "More will come," she said, her voice urgent. "You need to leave. Now." Jack looked back at the beast. The logical part of him knew she was right. He didn't know what was happening to him yet, and if more of these things showed up, he might not win. With one last glance at the trembling monster, Jack turned and ran into the jungle with Zayla. The escape. Jack should have been exhausted. His body had gone through some kind of unnatural transformation. He had fought a creature twice his size. But instead, he felt stronger with every step. Zayla led him through the dense jungle, moving swiftly, her glowing blue dress flickering in the moonlight. "We need to reach the underground tunnels," she said. "If they find you, they'll—" She stopped suddenly, glancing back at him. Her gaze flicked to his arms, his glowing veins. Her expression darkened. "It's happening faster than I thought." Jack frowned. "What's happening?" Zayla didn't answer. Instead, she reached into her satchel and pulled out a small silver device. She pressed a button, and a holographic screen appeared in the air. Jack couldn't read the symbols, but he recognized one thing: his own face. Next to it was a flashing red symbol. Wanted. Jack's stomach twisted. What the hell is this? Zayla looked at him, her face grim. "They know. The council. They know you drank the milk." Jack clenched his fists. "So what? I didn't do anything wrong." Zayla shook her head. "You don't understand. That milk, it wasn't meant for humans. It's sacred. She hesitated, as if struggling to find the words. "It's the source of our species' power. The only ones allowed to drink it are our warriors. And even they take only small amounts." Jack's stomach dropped. "I drank. A lot." Zayla nodded. "Too much." Jack exhaled sharply, trying to calm himself. "Okay. So what's the worst that can happen? I mean, aside from getting chased by monsters." Zayla's gaze darkened. "Your body won't stop changing. The energy inside you, it will keep growing. Soon, you won't just be strong. Her voice turned into a whisper. You'll become something else. A chill ran down Jack's spine. And if I don't want that to happen. Zayla looked away. Then we need to find a cure before it's too late. Jack's jaw tightened. And if we don't? She didn't answer. But Jack already knew. If they didn't find a way to stop this, he would lose control. And he might not be human anymore. Hunted by the alien council, Jack's breathing was steady, but his mind was racing. The jungle around him was alive with strange noises, whispers in the trees, distant growls from unseen creatures, the hum of energy pulsing through the alien landscape. His body felt different. More than just strong, unnatural. The golden energy in his veins had stopped glowing, but he could still feel it, coiled inside him like a sleeping beast. Zayla moved quickly ahead of him, guiding him deeper into the jungle. She hadn't spoken much since showing him the holographic alert. Wanted. Dangerous. Unknown mutation. Those words replayed in Jack's head like a drumbeat. He exhaled, gripping his fists. So, tell me the truth, he said. This isn't just about the milk, is it? Zayla didn't turn to face him. She kept walking, her silver hair flowing behind her. No, she admitted. It's not. Jack gritted his teeth. Then what is this? What am I turning into? Zayla stopped suddenly. She turned, and in the soft glow of the alien moon, Jack saw fear in her violet eyes. She hesitated before speaking. A monster. Jack flinched. Excuse me. She let out a slow breath. Our warriors. The ones who drink the milk in small amounts. They gain strength, heightened senses, faster reflexes. But long ago, there were those who drank too much. They didn't just become stronger. She paused. They became something else, something that couldn't be controlled. Jack felt his stomach tighten. You mean, this has happened before? Zayla nodded. And the last time, it nearly destroyed my people. Jack's hands clenched. He wanted to argue, to say she was wrong. But deep down, he felt it too. That burning energy inside him, the way his instincts had shifted in the fight against the beast, the way he could sense emotions, the way he had moved faster than humanly possible. He was changing. And the worst part, a small part of him liked it. Jack shook his head. So what's the plan? We find a cure, right? Zayla didn't answer right away. That made him nervous. We need to reach the underground city, she finally said. There's someone there who might be able to help. Jack frowned. Might. Before she could respond, a loud whirring sound filled the air. The jungle around them lit up with flashing red lights. Jack's entire body went rigid. His senses spiked. The air felt charged, electric. Zayla cursed under her breath. They found us. Jack didn't ask who. He already knew. The alien council. The hunters arrive. The trees above them shook violently as massive, dark figures descended from the sky. Jack's eyes locked onto them. 6 armored warriors, their bodies covered in sleek metallic exosuits. Their helmets had no visible eyes, just glowing red slits that flickered as they scanned the area. The leader, taller than the rest, took a step forward. His deep voice echoed through the jungle. Surrender the human. Zayla stepped protectively in front of Jack. He's not dangerous. The leader ignored her, his gaze locked onto Jack. He consumed the forbidden nectar. His mutation has already begun. Jack's fingers twitched. He could feel his pulse speeding up, that same burning energy rising inside him. The warrior took another step forward. You will come with us. Jack felt it before it even happened, the moment before the warriors attacked. His instincts kicked in. Move. Jack didn't wait. The second the warrior reached for him, he was already in motion. He dodged left, fast, faster than any human should be able to move. The ground beneath him cracked as he launched himself into the air. The first warrior swung a heavy plasma weapon at him. Jack twisted midair. his body reacting on its own. Then he countered. His fist struck the warrior's chest plate. A deafening boom filled the jungle. The warrior was thrown backward, crashing through the trees like a meteor. Jack barely had time to process it before the others attacked. Plasma bolts flew through the air. Jack moved without thinking, his new instincts taking over. He ducked, rolled, then sprang up, grabbing one of the warriors by the arm. His grip was unnaturally strong. He yanked the warrior off the ground and hurled him into another. Zayla screamed, "Jack, stop!" But he couldn't stop. The energy inside him was raging, pulsing, demanding to be released. Every movement felt perfect, every counterattack instinctive. It wasn't just strength, it was power. And it felt too good. The leader of the warriors suddenly raised his hand, and a shockwave blasted through the air. Jack's body locked up. A powerful force gripped him, holding him in place. His muscles tensed, his breath caught in his throat. They had some kind of technology that could restrain him. Zayla rushed forward. "Wait. He can control it. Please." The leader didn't hesitate. "No, he is no longer human." Jack growled. He couldn't move, but he could feel the energy inside him pushing back against the force holding him down. It was trying to break free. Jack gritted his teeth. "No, not yet." The leader raised his weapon. "If we don't stop him now, he will become worse than the creatures we hunt." Jack's vision blurred. The burning sensation inside him spiked. He felt something snap. And then everything exploded. A wave of golden energy burst from his body, knocking everyone back. The force shattered trees, sent warriors flying. Zayla screamed, covering her face as the ground cracked beneath them. Jack fell to his knees, gasping. He could feel it now. He was losing control. The leader of the warriors slowly stood up, gripping his weapon. His voice was grim. "There is no cure," he said. There never was. Jack's blood ran cold. And for the first time since his transformation began, he was truly afraid. The price of power. Jack knelt in the shattered remains of the jungle, his body trembling from the energy blast that had just erupted from him. The air was thick with dust, smoke rising from the ground where trees had been uprooted and rocks had split apart. The warriors who had been hunting him lay scattered, groaning as they tried to recover. Zayla was on her knees a few feet away, staring at him in shock. Jack's chest heaved. His body still hummed with energy, the golden glow in his veins pulsing brighter than ever. His hand shook, not from fear, but from the sheer power coursing through him. This was no ordinary strength. This was something else. The leader of the warriors, still gripping his weapon, pushed himself up. His helmet was cracked, but his voice was steady. "There is no cure." The words sent a chill down Jack's spine. He turned toward Zayla, searching for some sign that it wasn't true, that there was still hope. But she wasn't looking at him. She was staring at his hands, at his fingers, which had started to change. Jack followed her gaze, his breath caught in his throat. His fingertips were elongating, the nails sharpening into claws. His skin had darkened slightly, taking on a faint metallic sheen. His veins were no longer just glowing. They were spreading, branching out like lightning under his flesh. Jack's stomach twisted. What's happening to me?" Zayla slowly rose to her feet, her voice barely a whisper. "It's too fast. The transformation is accelerating." Jack's pulse pounded in his ears. He clenched his fists. "Then we fix it." The warrior leader wiped the blood from his mouth and let out a low, bitter chuckle. "You still don't understand, do you?" He gestured at the destruction around them. "There is nothing to fix. You are no longer human. You are something new." Jack's jaw tightened. "I don't believe that." "You should." The leader adjusted his weapon and took a step forward, this time with caution. "In our history, only a few have taken as much of the nectar as you have. Each time, we tried to stop the transformation. Each time, we failed." His red visor glowed menacingly. They became things, beasts, creatures of pure instinct. Their minds broke. They lost themselves. Jack's breath came out in short bursts. No, that couldn't happen to him. He was still himself. He was still Jack Harper, a human, a survivor, a fighter. But in the back of his mind, he remembered the rage that had taken hold when he fought the beast earlier, the way his body had moved on its own, like an animal attacking prey. What if it was already happening? Zayla stepped between him and the warrior. We don't know that Jack will become like them. He's different. The leader scoffed. Different? He pointed at Jack's glowing, clawed hands. Does that look different to you? Jack exhaled sharply. He had to find a way out of this. If there's no cure, then what happens next? The leader didn't hesitate. We put you down. The decision. Jack's mind snapped into focus. He was not going to die here. His eyes flicked to Zayla. Run. She blinked. What? I said run. And then Jack moved. Faster than the warriors expected. Faster than even he expected. One moment, he was standing still. The next, he was in front of the leader, grabbing his plasma weapon and crushing it in his grip like it was made of paper. The warrior's eyes widened. Too strong. Jack grabbed the warrior by the chest plate and threw him across the clearing. The others tried to react, but Jack was already moving, dodging, weaving, striking. One down, a quick punch sent another flying backward, slamming into a tree. Two down. He ripped a plasma rifle from a soldier's hands and crushed it before grabbing the stunned alien and flipping him over. Three down. He could hear everything. The sharp intake of breath from Zayla, the sound of shifting armor, the crackle of damaged tech. The final two warriors hesitated. Jack smirked. They were afraid. And deep down, a voice inside him liked it. He took a step forward. The warriors instinctively backed away. The old Jack might have stopped, might have tried to reason with them. But this new Jack wanted them to run. Zayla's voice cut through the haze in his mind. Jack, stop. Something in her voice, fear, desperation, made him pause. Jack blinked. For a second, he had almost given in to the thing growing inside him. He shook it off. His fists unclenched, his breathing slowed. He turned to Zayla. We need to go. She nodded, relief flashing in her eyes. Together, they ran. The underground city. The jungle gave way to a rocky canyon, and Zayla led him toward a hidden passage carved into the mountainside. Jack barely noticed the sweat dripping down his skin. His body wasn't tired. That was another problem. A normal human should have been exhausted by now. But Jack felt like he could keep running for days. His transformation wasn't slowing down. Zayla stopped in front of a smooth stone wall. She pressed her palm against it, and a hidden doorway slid open with a low hum. Jack followed her inside, and the second the door shut behind them, he felt the difference. The underground air was cool, humming with strange energy. The tunnel stretched ahead in glowing patterns, leading toward a massive, domed cavern. Jack's jaw dropped. The city was huge. Alien architecture, glowing pathways, buildings that floated in the air. Strange vehicles zipped through the space, and thousands of beings, Zayla's people, moved about, unaware of what was coming. Zayla turned to Jack, her voice low. If anyone can help you, they're in here. Jack exhaled, trying to steady himself. But deep down, he knew the truth. This wasn't just about finding a cure. It was about stopping whatever he was turning into, before it was too late. The last warning. Jack followed Zayla through the underground tunnels, his mind heavy with everything that had happened. His body no longer felt like his own. His strength, his speed, even his instincts had become something unnatural. The energy inside him pulsed with every step, humming beneath his skin, waiting to be released. And that terrified him. The underground city stretched out before them, massive and glowing with alien technology far beyond anything he had ever seen. Floating platforms carried people through the air. Glowing blue pathways shifted underfoot, and enormous crystalline structures pulsed with energy in the distance. The city was alive, breathing, thriving. But Jack couldn't focus on its beauty, because somewhere in this city was his only chance at stopping what was happening to him. Zayla led him through a narrow corridor lined with symbols that Jack couldn't understand. She stopped in front of a large door, pressing her palm against a glowing panel. A soft hiss filled the air, and the door slid open. Inside was a dark chamber, lit only by a few dim blue lights embedded in the walls. In the center of the room stood a tall figure, draped in long robes of shifting silver. His face was obscured by a hood, but Jack could feel his gaze, deep, calculating, ancient. Zayla hesitated before speaking. "Elder Vesh, we need your help." The figure's voice was calm, but filled with quiet authority. "I know why you have come." Jack clenched his fists. "Then you know I need a cure." Vesh was silent for a long moment. Then, slowly, he stepped forward, his eyes scanning Jack's glowing veins, his sharpened fingertips. Finally, he spoke. "There is no cure." Jack's heart stopped. "Not again." He shook his head. "No, that's not an answer. There has to be a way to stop this." Vesh studied him carefully. "Your transformation has already progressed too far." Jack felt anger bubble up inside him. "So what? You're saying I'm just supposed to accept this?" Vesh tilted his head. "No, I am saying you must choose." Jack frowned. "Choose what?" The elder took a step closer. "To control the power, or to let it consume you." Jack's breath caught. "Control it." Vesh continued, his voice low and steady. "You are not the first to overindulge in the nectar. Many before you sought to harness its gifts. Some succeeded." He paused. "But most failed." Jack swallowed hard. "And the ones who failed?" Vesh's eyes darkened. "They became creatures of instinct. They lost their minds, their sense of self. They became nothing more than beasts." Jack exhaled slowly, his fists tightening. "That's not going to happen to me." The elder watched him for a long moment before nodding. "Perhaps." Then he lifted his hand, and suddenly, the entire room shifted. "The trial." Jack gasped as his vision blurred. The walls around him melted away, and suddenly, he was no longer in the chamber. He was somewhere else. A massive battlefield stretched before him, endless and empty. The sky was dark, swirling with golden energy that mirrored the glow in his own veins. The ground cracked beneath his feet, pulsing with power. And then, he saw them. Creatures, horrors, twisted versions of himself, hulking beasts with golden veins, clawed hands, burning eyes, monstrous forms. They moved like shadows, shifting unnaturally, growling, snarling. They had once been like him, human, but now they were something else, something mindless. Jack took a step back. "What is this?" Vesh's voice echoed in his mind. "This is your future, if you do not learn control." Jack's pulse spiked. The creatures suddenly rushed forward, claws bared, teeth gleaming. Instinct took over. Jack moved before he could think. The first creature lunged. Jack dodged effortlessly, spinning behind it and driving his fist into its side. The impact sent a shockwave through the air, shattering the ground beneath them. The creature let out a horrifying screech before dissolving into golden dust. Another came from the left. Jack caught its arm mid-swing, twisting its massive form and slamming it into the earth. The battle became a blur. Jack fought with a speed and strength that didn't belong to him. Every movement was instinctual, predatory. The beasts came at him in waves, but he tore through them like a storm, his golden energy erupting in bursts of light with every strike. And deep down, he liked it. The power. The raw, unfiltered strength. It felt good. Too good. Jack landed hard, breathing heavily. The battlefield was empty now. The creatures were gone. but something inside him still burned. His hands trembled. His veins glowed brighter. It wasn't just a test. It was a warning. The moment he let go, the moment he stopped fighting for control, he would become one of them. The truth. Jack snapped back to reality. He was in the chamber again, his breath ragged, his heart pounding. Zayla was by his side, her hand on his arm. Jack? He looked up. Elder Vesh was still there, watching him closely. Now Jack understood. This wasn't about a cure. It was about him. The only way to survive this was to master the power, or be destroyed by it. Vesh nodded slowly. Now you see. Jack exhaled, his mind clear. For the first time since this all started, he knew what he had to do. He had to control it, before it controlled him. Zayla touched his shoulder. Jack, are you okay? Jack turned to her, his expression hard. I don't think I ever will be. A loud alarm suddenly blared through the chamber. Jack tensed. What now? Vesh's expression darkened. The council is here. Jack cursed under his breath. Zayla turned to the elder. We have to get him out of here. But Vesh shook his head. No. If he runs, they will hunt him forever. Jack squared his shoulders. Then what do I do? The elder's next words sent a shiver down his spine. You fight. The final showdown. The alarm's blaring echoes filled the underground chamber. The walls thrummed with an eerie pulse of energy as the city above came alive with movement. Jack felt it. An army was coming. The alien council had found him. His veins still glowed faintly from the trial Elder Vesh had put him through, but something was different now. He wasn't shaking. He wasn't confused. He had made his choice. He would not become one of those mindless creatures, and he would not let himself be captured. Elder Vesh stepped forward, his eyes heavy with wisdom. You have little time, Jack Harper. The council will not negotiate. To them, you are already lost. Jack exhaled sharply. Then they're in for a surprise. Zayla grabbed his arm, her grip firm but desperate. Jack, we can still escape. There's a way out through the lower tunnels. But Jack shook his head. If I run, they'll never stop hunting me. They'll come after you too. Elder Vesh nodded approvingly. You understand now. This is not just about survival. This is about proving them wrong. Jack flexed his fingers. His nails had sharpened slightly, but he focused, willed them back. The power inside him glistened. It wasn't perfect control, but it was something. He turned toward the door. Then let's show them exactly what they're up against. The arrival. Above them, the underground city trembled as the alien council's forces descended. Sleek black ships hovered over the streets, casting shadows over the glowing structures. From their open hatches, warriors in heavy exosuits dropped down, their armor gleaming with blue and red lights. Their weapons hummed with power, built to subdue whatever their enemy had become. Jack stood at the heart of it all, waiting. The first wave of warriors moved in formation, weapons raised. The leader's voice echoed through an inbuilt speaker. Jack Harper, you are ordered to surrender. You are not in control. Jack's jaw tightened. Funny, I feel pretty in control. The warriors fired. Bright blue energy blasted toward him, crackling through the air. Jack moved before he even thought about it, his instincts sharper than ever. He twisted sideways, dodging the first few shots with inhuman precision. Then he charged. A warrior aimed directly at his chest. Jack's hand snapped up, grabbing the barrel of the weapon, and crushed it like paper. The warrior barely had time to react before Jack spun, grabbing him by the armor and hurling him across the battlefield. He crashed into his squad mates, sending them sprawling. Jack grinned. He was stronger than them, faster, and he was just getting started. More warriors rushed in, activating energy shields and deploying shock batons meant to weaken his kind. Jack saw it all in slow motion. His mind processed every movement, every opening. He moved. Jack ducked under a bait and swing, grabbed the warrior's wrist, and with a sharp twist, sent the enemy flipping through the air. Before the others could react, he slammed a fist into the ground, cracking the stone beneath him, sending a wave of force outward that toppled half of them. Zayla stood behind him, wide-eyed. Uldervesh murmured, "Remarkable." But it wasn't over. A sudden shockwave hit Jack from behind. He stumbled forward as a new figure descended from the sky. A High Inquisitor. Unlike the others, his armor was heavier, reinforced with dark plating that pulsed with a dangerous golden glow, just like Jack's veins. The Inquisitor's voice was low, unshaken. "I see. The mutation has progressed further than expected." Jack narrowed his eyes. "Yeah, and what are you supposed to be? The final boss?" The Inquisitor took a step forward, his armored fingers crackling with energy. "No, Jack Harper. I am your replacement." Before Jack could react, the Inquisitor vanished. Fast, too fast. Then, pain. Jack felt a brutal strike to his ribs, sending him flying. He skidded across the stone floor, barely stopping himself before crashing into a wall. He coughed, a sharp pain stabbing his side. That wasn't just brute force. It was his own energy turned against him. Jack looked up just in time to see the Inquisitor rushing him again. This time, Jack was ready. He moved, blocking the attack, countering with his own strike. Their fists met in a flash of golden light, the impact shaking the entire chamber. The Inquisitor didn't flinch. Jack gritted his teeth. Finally, a real fight. The battle for control. The two clashed again and again, their movements a blur. The Inquisitor was fast, but Jack was learning. Every attack, every block, every feint, it all became part of the pattern. Jack ducked low, sweeping the Inquisitor's legs. The warrior jumped, twisting in midair and slamming a knee into Jack's shoulder. Jack absorbed the hit and spun, launching a punch straight into his enemy's chest. The ground cracked from the impact. The Inquisitor stumbled, and for the first time, hesitated. Jack smirked. Not so tough now. The Inquisitor exhaled. Then his voice was cold, sharp. "You think this is power. This is nothing compared to what you could become." Jack's smirk faltered. The Inquisitor's veins glowed brighter, his body pulsing with pure golden energy. His armor cracked apart, revealing something monstrous underneath, a half-formed beast, muscles shifting, his eyes burning with something inhuman. Jack's blood ran cold. The Inquisitor had been one of them all along. This was what Jack was destined to become. The monstrous warrior lunged. Jack barely dodged as a massive clawed hand swiped at him, the force behind it shattering a nearby column. He tried to counter, but the creature's speed had doubled. Jack's mind screamed. If he kept fighting like this, if he let himself go just a little more, he would become just like the Inquisitor. He had to end this. Now, Jack closed his eyes for a split second, focusing on the burning power inside him. And for the first time, he pushed it down. The golden glow in his veins dimmed, the energy folding inward instead of erupting outward. His mind cleared, his instincts sharpening to exact precision. The Inquisitor snarled, "What are you doing?" Jack opened his eyes. Winning. And then, with one final strike, he unleashed everything. Not as a monster, not as a mindless beast, but as Jack Harper. His punch connected with the Inquisitor's chest, sending out a shockwave so powerful that it shattered the enemy's monstrous form, sending golden light scattering into the air. The battle was over. Jack stood over the fallen enemy, breathing hard. The remaining warriors froze, their weapons lowered. Jack had won. But as he looked down at his trembling hands, he knew. The real fight was just beginning. The ultimate price. Silence. The underground city, once filled with the sounds of war, was now still. Smoke curled in the air, drifting through shattered stone and crumbling structures. The alien council's warriors stood frozen, their weapons lowered, their eyes fixed on him. Jack Harper stood in the center of it all, his chest rising and falling, his body still humming with power. The golden energy in his veins flickered like a dying fire, controlled, but still there. At his feet lay the defeated Inquisitor, his monstrous form reduced to nothing but scattered dust and fading light. Jack had won, but he didn't feel like a victor. He looked down at his trembling hands, the last traces of golden power retreating beneath his skin. The battle had proven something terrifying. He was strong enough to win, strong enough to control the energy. But for how long? Jack knew what he had felt in that fight. The pull, the temptation. If he had let go for even a second longer, he would have become the very thing he had just destroyed. He swallowed hard. This wasn't over. A city on the edge of fear. Zayla hurried to his side, her silver eyes filled with concern. "Jack, are you?" "I'm fine," Jack said quickly, but even he wasn't sure if it was true. Elder Vesh stepped forward, his gaze heavy with understanding. "You have done what we could not. You have shown them that power can be controlled." Jack looked at the alien warriors, their expressions a mix of fear and awe. They had come here to end him, believing that his transformation was irreversible, that he would lose himself, just like all the others before him. Instead, he had proved them wrong. But was that enough? The leader of the Alien Council finally stepped forward, his dark robe flowing behind him. His face was lined with age and wisdom, his eyes cold and untrusting. "This changes nothing," he said. "You are still a threat." Jack clenched his jaw. "I just saved your people from someone who was already gone. I'm not like him." The council leader narrowed his eyes. "Not yet." Jack exhaled sharply. He had expected this. The council didn't deal in possibilities, only absolutes. To them, he was a danger waiting to happen, and if he stayed here, they would never stop hunting him. Elder Vesh spoke calmly. "If you are wise, you will see that this human is different. He has done what none of the others could." The leader shook his head. "That does not erase the risk." Jack felt it before he even heard it. The slow, careful movements of snipers taking position on the rooftops above. The hum of plasma rifles charging. The cold certainty in the air. They were going to execute him. He tensed. He could take them all down if he wanted to. He had the strength, the speed. His mind was already calculating the quickest way to eliminate every threat in the room. No. Jack forced himself to breathe. This wasn't a fight he could win with his fists. So instead, he turned and walked away. They escaped. Zayla hurried after him. "Jack, wait. Where are you going?" Jack didn't stop. "Away from here. They'll come after you." Jack let out a bitter laugh. "Yeah, I know." Elder Vesh called after him. "You will always be hunted, Jack Harper. There is nowhere in this universe where they will let you exist." Jack paused at the entrance of the chamber, glancing back at the ancient figure. "Then I'll just have to find a place of my own." Zayla's expression tightened. "I'm coming with you." Jack frowned. "Zayla, you don't have to." "I want to." She took a determined step forward. "You're not the only one fighting to prove something." Jack studied her for a long moment. Then, with a small nod, he turned toward the exit. Together, they disappeared into the tunnels beneath the city. The hunt had begun. The final price. The moment they were outside, Jack took in a slow, deep breath. The air was cool, the sky stretching wide above them, filled with endless stars. Freedom. But at what cost? Jack knew the truth now. He would never be the same. The golden energy inside him, even controlled, would always be there. The Alien Council would never stop chasing him. And one day, he might lose himself after all. But today wasn't that day. Zayla looked up at him. "So, where do we go now?" Jack exhaled, staring up at the endless cosmos. "Somewhere they'll never find us." Zayla smirked. "That sounds impossible." Jack grinned. "Then it's a good thing I like a challenge." With that, he turned toward the horizon, stepping into the unknown. Whatever happened next, he would face it his way.